Signore e signori, buonasera a tutti. Buonasera a tutti. Sorry, Mark, I make a little bit slow introduction in Italian. Gentili signori, buonasera a tutti. Qui si fa la storia del ZDR, ragazzi, del ZDR italiano, con un bel po' di emozione in corpo. Per me, per Eric, pelle d'oca, abbiamo con noi
sì.
Mr. Marc Miller. Ladies and gentlemen, with a little bit of emotion, for sure, we would like to introduce Mr. Marc Miller. Mr. Marc Miller, thank you very much for being here with us from the deep of our heart, and please forgive us if we can contact you 1,000 times. You were so kind, so available for us, so we can only say thank you before beginning anything. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to talk to you.
For what I can say about my introduction now is deeply moved in sense of the feelings. Why? Because as I wrote into Instagram posts, there is a lot of tabletop RPGs in the history. Some of these RPGs made the history of this act of the people, of this way of gaming, but just a few of them make the history. In the Elysium of this position of the games, for sure there is one game called Traveler, and his author that is considered here in Italy, here in Europe, and I think all over the world, one of the giant of the production of the tabletop roleplay games. So this is my personal introduction to Mr. Marc Miller. And Eric, do you want to say something? Because I just stay over there with a little bit of shaking.
Okay. Well, I have to thank you, Mark, for being here today. It is an honor. I remember playing your game as one of the first games I played when I was a kid. And I could never imagine that one day I can have you speaking with us today. So again, thank you very much. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you as our guest.
Thank you. You're very flattering. I appreciate your thoughts.
And so let's go straight with the first question that we are usual to make to our guests all the time. So, first question, dear Mark. Could you please tell us who is Mr. Marc Miller?
I think the word that applies is lucky.
Okay.
Good reply.
I survived the Vietnam War and came home and had no idea what I wanted to do. And really would have preferred to do nothing at all. And so I just kind of settled in going to college and found a couple of friends who knew about games. And these were the old board games, the war games from Simulations Publications. Wonderful, hard to play, difficult games that used up all my time. But I fell into that, and I fell into some nice friends. I was lucky because they wanted to do games and I wanted to do games, and the three of us, the four of us, used our talents together to create a game company, and we made some fun games and a lot of friendships. And some of those friends who played the games that we made discovered Dungeons and Dragons, and when they came to visit us, they showed us that game, Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And it was immediately somebody took this person's copy. We had offices upstairs above the drugstore in downtown Normal, Illinois. Somebody immediately took that copy, ran downstairs, and had 5 copies made at the copy store down in on the first floor. We wanted to respect their rights. We ordered copies, but they were out of stock. As soon as the copies came in, we threw away the photocopies. We want to not cheat Gary Gygax and his people of their rightful payment.
Mm-hmm.
One of my partners, Frank Chadwick,
Yeah.
after about 2 weeks, made a decree. He said, no one is allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons while the sun is up. Because we were playing it full time, 24 hours a day, all day long. Nobody was getting any work done. We had deadlines to meet. We had work to do. And so we kept playing. We just played at night after ordinary work for the day was done. After about 6 months of this, everybody playing, having a good time, I said, nobody's doing a science fiction game. We should do a science fiction role-playing game. And the way Game Designers Workshop worked was that if a designer like myself wanted to do something, we could do it. We could try it at least. And so I set about trying to put together Dungeons and Dragons in space.
Yeah.
But of course, I didn't want to do fantasy. I wanted to do realistic. Well, not terribly realistic, because then we would never get to space at all. But the science fiction that I'd read as a boy, and I'd read a lot of science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so you ask who I am, I'm lucky because I got to do that. I was in a job that allowed me to do that. I got to go to game conventions and play this game with other people. I got to talk to people. Oh my goodness, this was 1978, 1980. We didn't. I might talk to people on the phone, but mostly it was by letter, or it was by going to a game convention. Which, boy, conventions were wonderful things to do, because you could talk to people. And I'm lucky because I got to do that, and I'm lucky because I've continued to be able to do that. But Traveler is a lucky game too. People tell me that Traveler changed their life. I sometimes I harvest those emails and put them in a folder, because I have people who tell me I didn't understand math, and when I got Traveler, I wanted to know it, and Traveler is full of math. And they learned math, and now they're an astrophysicist, or now they're
This is incredible.
an astronomer. They work for NASA. And of course, Traveler didn't do that for them. They did it for themselves. Traveler is lucky to be there and be the way that they found that they could handle math or reading or physics or any of those things. But Traveler was lucky because it was in the right place at the right time. Traveler is also lucky because it tries to tell people lessons, gives people the opportunity to learn lessons about life. back when Traveler started, we had magazines for girls telling them how to be adults. You know, they're called 17 magazine, and
Yeah.
12-year-old girls read it hoping they would be 17, and it gave them tips on how to talk to a boy, or how to dress properly, or how to do makeup, or all these things. And there weren't a lot of things like that for boys. I know there are some magazines for boys, but they're mostly about camping and Boy Scouting. And Traveler was something that appealed to people. Now, I'm not saying that Dungeons and Dragons doesn't do the same thing, because it does. But Traveler lets someone, a young man who plays this game, plan something and budget and put together an invasion plan, or design a starship or something. So my grandson, when he was 8 years old, wanted to play Traveler, and we played Traveler. We had a good time playing Traveler, but it's not just sitting there and doing an adventure. He gets to think about what he wanted to do. So at eight years old, he created a character, and it was an interesting character for him. It was a Vargar of some sort. Hold on just a minute.
Yeah.
Hey, Google, pause. It was listening to me, and it somehow thought I was talking to it, and I'm not. So my grandson was creating a character. He created a Vargar character that's one of these wolf-like aliens.
Yeah.
And he had I drew a picture of him, and he drew a spaceship for him, which is what an 8-year-old can do. And he decided, I don't know where he got it, that his character had 2 billion credits.
Wow.
And so he knew how to write a billion, 2 and a comma and a 0, 0, 0. He had that written down. And we went out. We were then doing an adventure, and he was traveling from one world to another, and they stopped at a spaceport and bought lunch for 22 credits. And so he proceeded to subtract 22, and now he had 1,999,000,000. The idea that he could tackle subtracting something from something, huge numbers. Talk about empowerment for a little boy. Where else would he ever have that much money? Where else would he have to do budgeting like that? He barely can. Trevor's lucky because it gets in people's heads and helps them cope with things. So you ask who I am, I'm lucky. I didn't tell you anything about myself except I enjoy this. You can see the smile on my face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I get to do this. I mean, I'm lucky.
We are lucky. We can say that if you are lucky, we are lucky too.
Thank you.
We are lucky too, because I would like to say that maybe I will not work for NASA, or I'm not astrophysicist, but for sure, playing Traveler when I was young bring me to the choice to make electronic engineering. So I take a degree. So I would like to say thank you for this, because probably I will not the people who discover the secret of the galaxies. But in Traveler, I will be for sure the man that create the starship to go everywhere over there to discover the secrets. So
the other, I was talking to you earlier, and there are two parts to Traveler. There's the rules up here of how you play, and they can be very deep and difficult, or they can be easy. And a game the value of our game master, of our referee, is that he or she can make them work. But that's the rules, and we got rules because we want to tell you how to do things.
Yeah.
And Traveler is a lot of solitaire. That you can build a universe, you can generate worlds, you can draw spaceships, you can create characters, you can do all these things by yourself. And the truth is, in our world, you don't necessarily, it's very hard to schedule 4 other people to sit down and play. And I don't want to just play Traveler 2 hours on Saturday night. I want to do something all the time. And Traveler's secret is that it's something to do anytime you want to do something. You can build worlds, you can make them, you can populate them, you can do all these science fiction things and enjoy them all by yourself. But that's the rules. The other thing is this storytelling part of Traveler, the stories that we get to tell in Traveler. And we wrote a lot of adventures that captured people's imaginations. I like to say that, you know, Amazon has Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing Foundations. That's based on Traveler.
Okay.
Amazing.
After this, we could say everything he said. We can go away for the next episode of a Speaker's Corner. We can stop because we reach on the top, and there's nothing more to say. Okay, I'm a little bit astonished over this.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Me too.
They
Absolutely.
can message you if they don't understand that joke.
If you don't understand the joke, it's not a problem, because I think that the honing of this platform, so Twitch, is for Mr. Bezos. So I think we say, good, Mr. Bezos, we are joking. Eh? Don't worry about that.
Yes.
Anyway,
don't ban us.
going straight back, I give you my reaction, and then I kindly ask you, Eric, to give a reaction about what you said. My reaction to what you said is, first one, wow. Second one, wow. Third one, I started to think and to elaborate of what you said. And I could honestly tell you, as I told in the preview, that for me, personally, that I started to play in 1992. I was born in 1982 and I started in 1992. Obviously with Dungeons and Dragons, but not because Dungeons and Dragons was the main, because at that time in Italy was the only one brought back into Europe. I think that the second game that arrived over there in Europe in a couple of years after I started play was Traveler. And then when I see that black book where there's written Traveler, I was so fascinated, because even just from a book, it appears look like a book. So it's a little bit strange, because our generation was so accustomed to the manual look like the Dungeons and Dragons manual. So we were curious. And I think that curiosity is the main issue of Traveler, okay? So I just opened the book, I started to read, and I said, oh, come on, this is the best book I've ever read in my life. This is most fascinating. So I started to read the book, even before I started to play, because to find people to play this game, I need to give them the book and say, read it. Read it, because you don't know what is written over here. Read it. You never see one thing like this. So my book just turned it into 1,000 people, because at the time was not so easy to get the manual in Italy. So this book became viral into my friend community and said, come on, let's do it. Let's do the stage of creating characters in Traveler. Do you, and we said one to each other, do you feel ready? We are ready, because, you know, people maybe don't know. In the chat, I will explain. Creating characters on Traveler is one of the best experience that you could have if you play tabletop role-play games. It's one of the things that you have to do in your role-player life. So, believe me. And when we started, we said, come on, guys, we could never stop. So, sometimes we stop it to play our other games. But Traveler, as you said one great truth, is no stop gaming. Because it's something that starts from your mind. Sometimes you go pointless from one star to another one, from one planet to the other one. But at the end, it's an pure expression of fantasy, of a creation. So everything is possible to do in Traveler. As people said in our Wikipedia of the roleplay game is, everything you can do with Traveler is everything. And I think that this expression is the best you can give to the game you created, because really you can do anything. Even now that the technology is going over, that the things are going over, that the movies look like normal to do spaceship and so on. Even now, the powerful of creation, so well expressed in Traveler. It's something that is not possible to replicate, change, or update. The only one that can update this thing is you, Mark. For me, it's you. So this is my position, and I'm a little bit fun, eh?
Yeah. We've got some good writers in Traveler. I mean, I'm not the only one. We've got some good people who've done good work. But thank you.
Thanks to you, Eric. I leave you because I have a goosebumps. Just to stop myself.
Yes. Beside what is my opinion about this, what I'm because I think that audience here I'm more interested to listen to Marc to speaking. So I have a question, an important question. So how your creative process works in tabletop RPGs? How you manage to create things for tabletop RPG?
Well, wow, what a question. I wanted to write things that people could understand. I wanted people to, if you read the Traveler books, if you read what's there, it all makes sense. If you have a space empire, it pretty much patterned on the British Empire, and everybody understands how that works. You have an emperor. If you have an emperor, you have an empress. If you have nobles, you have various noble people. All of those make sense to a reader who doesn't know anything about the Traveler universe. We can tell secrets and we can tell interesting things that happen, but the way you handle entering an airport is pretty obvious. The way you pilot a spaceship is pretty obvious. And so it's not hard for a player to get into the system. And that's something I always wanted to keep in mind, is I wanted it to be easy for somebody to pick up the game. They don't have to learn a special language. They don't have to understand a strange religious dictatorship or some thing that they're not used to. Everything's pretty much the same as they expect it to be. And I think that helps us write adventures that people can get into. They want, and if you look at the original classic Traveler adventures, every one of them was different because we were trying to write an example of how to explore a world, how to be marooned, how to explore an abandoned or wrecked spaceship, how to explore, how to deal with a world that is all water. All of those adventures, they're not the same. Every one addresses a new situation. And so a game master confronted with those has all the hints and the techniques to do his own water world or his own spaceship that we want to explore. My creative process isn't about making fantastic things that nobody understands. I'm trying to tell stories that people do understand and can relate to. And of course, in role playing, anything can happen. So I have to be prepared for that. Maybe it's a good monster, maybe it's a bad monster, maybe it's villains, maybe it's friends, maybe they're all going to die, maybe they're going to survive. Everybody's play is different. And it comes back to, this is different than writing novels because we have to write a story that allows that game referee, that game master, to make this game enjoyable at the moment for whoever's sitting there and playing it.
So I think that you said everything about the process of creation, but because you partially replied to the next question that I would like to did, I would like to include one thing, because there is a nice question from the chat, and people said, when you create your adventure, when you create your words, over the process that you told us, the creative process inspired by this drawing and painting, is there something inspiration in music, for example? Did you feel something? Maybe you have some soundtrack in background, or you have something that, if you listen, maybe inspire a little bit.
Alas, I am a consumer rather than a producer of music.
Really? Oh.
I like to listen to music. I like all kinds of music. Um, I don't play.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. I tried the trombone once and I was terrible at it. You can imagine. Um, there's no direct, there's no music that I can point to
Mm-hmm.
specifically that inspired any one or thing that we have. But I do think that music playing in the background helps the creative process. Um, and so I tend towards classic rather than popular or rock because there are no words there to interfere with my thought process.
How's your favorite classical author? Who is?
Oh, um,
It's a good question.
I like I like classic Bach
Yeah.
symphonies. Um, I like classic rather than
Mm-hmm.
new age. I like
Good.
the entire canon of classical music is so great that nobody can hear it all. Nobody can ever listen to it all. If you started, when you decided when you turned 21 and listened to a different symphony every day, you would never hear them all. So
This is a
um,
absolutely good reply. So now you have a clearer picture for people that would like to make a campaign on Traveler that classical music will be great as a soundtrack.
yes,
Okay, Eric.
Yes. This is amazing, and also connects somehow to my next question. And one something I'd like to ask you is this: nowadays, a lot of authors try to make their games with a really 70s feel or imagery. Um, how does it feel for someone who actually wrote the first edition of Traveler in 77, if I'm right?
yes.
Uh, to see trying to copy trying to steal the vibes of those years.
You have to ask your question again. I'm not clear what you're asking.
Yeah.
Okay. So many authors today try to give a very 70s vibes to their game, aesthetic vibes to the game. How does it feel being someone who published a game in those years?
I think there's nostalgia for the old games of 1970 of the very original Dungeons and Dragons. I loved it. But you had to work very hard to understand Dungeons and Dragons then. That's why they came up with the basic set and why they came out with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Because they wanted to make it easier to get in. It was a very special group of people who got into Traveler or Dungeons and Dragons back then. The writing was very simple and it made people work to understand it. You notice that in the original Traveler, it just started generating characters. You learned by doing. It didn't explain what a character was. We just assumed you knew what it was. I think we have to work to make games more accessible. And when you reach back to the 70s, I think fewer words are better. I agree with that. I think simple game concept are better.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. But I think we need to make sure we're fully explaining what we're doing. If we reach back for a 70s vibe and still explain fully, instead of making the players have assumptions, the original Traveler did not tell you how many skills, it didn't talk about what a skill level was. It just says it was.
Mhm.
We had to come to some conclusion that it represented a year's worth of experience or something. And over time, we've improved that. I think that 70s means easily read descriptions without a lot of fluff. That's
Okay.
fine.
Mhm.
But if it means not fully explaining it and making the player figure it out for himself, I don't agree anymore.
Okay, yeah, that's clear. Okay. So copy what is good, or be inspired from what is good, but not from what was maybe not perfect by then,
Yes,
back then.
yes.
One thing that I would like to say to Mark, I think that the industry of the video games have made a great booming in those years just because the technologies go over and so on. But I would like to tell you that this year the most the game that is weighted so much by the community, it's called Starfield. Believe me that Starfield want to try what you make since 1977.
Yeah.
But honestly speaking, there is a lot of problem to do it right now. So what I told you is, even if the years are passed, that the decades are passed, what you put as a nail into the ground with Traveler is not possible to make something that go closer, near, or even go over. So believe me that what you are telling us is so actual. Absolutely. Nowadays is the same at the age you created the game. For me, this is my perception, okay? But I would like to tell you that there is a video game that tried to copy Traveler without reaching it.
There are different goals in video games than there are in
Absolutely.
the paper game.
Absolutely.
That they want to use the chip to best advantage. They want to have. I spoke once upon a time with a game designer, like a video game designer, and this was back when we were doing it on Apples and Commodores. And he said that they had 256 skills or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And he thought I should be impressed. And I know 256 is easy. That's just, what, 2 to the 6th or whatever it is. If he told me he had 257 skills, I would have been impressed, because he would have ignored the mechanics of the system to do the right number of skills that he needed. You'll notice that my thing has crashed.
Oh, just one moment. We had a little bit crash. Don't worry. We are here.
Ragazzi, un secondo di
Un
pazienza,
secondo, un
perché
attimo.
abbiamo
Eccoci qua,
un piccolo
eccoci di
problema.
nuovo, eccoci di nuovo. Mark, do you
And
hear
I
me?
am back. I have returned.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
You're
Nothing is lost. Nothing is lost.
Nothing is lost.
I was telling you some of the secrets of the universe, and now they're gone. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone tried to shut us down.
Mr. Bezos don't like to be make cheer online, but come on.
I'm lost. What's your next question?
Next question. Let's go to see the next question. Next question. I will do it. We'll go to your tabletop RPGs have a very strong popularity and affection here in Italy, not changing in time. And Traveler Lovers indicated that your RPG as an example of a masterpiece in the roleplay sector. But do you feel this affection from, obviously, not only from Italy, but also from the world public?
There are people just like your Italian fan base all over the world who love Traveller. Now, my British publisher, Mongoose, told me at one time we were talking, and he said Traveller was the second best role playing game in England. But of course, I know what the first one was, and it's not like they had half the sales and I had the other half. Dungeons and Dragons dominates everything. Any child in America or in any civilized country encounters Dungeons and Dragons probably at about 10 years old, and they play it, and they may play it the right way, not the right way, but their own way. They may play it by the book. They make up their own rules. They may not even have rules. Somebody has played it and they enjoy it, or they don't. Some kids drop out, some kids go on. And there is some small portion of those kids who pick up Traveller because they don't want sword and sorcery. They want space and Star Trek or Star Wars or something. And Traveller fills that for them. And some of those players are still playing 40 years later because they've enjoyed it, because it does something for them.
May I add?
There is strong fan base because Traveller, and again, it's not, I agree, Traveller is a wonderfully, brilliantly written game, but it's the players that make it work for themselves. It does something for them. They enjoy generating characters or building starships or playing with their friends or making up stories. Traveller is just the base that they use to do what they want to do. And I'll go farther. I want to say that I believe strongly in Traveller. Every one of these people, everybody should play Traveller. Traveller is better than any of the other games. They should play Traveller.
Absolutely.
But when we started back in the 70s playing these games, whether it was Dungeons and Dragons or Chivalry and Sorcery or Call of Cthulhu or any of them, we just played them because we enjoyed playing with our friends and enjoyed the challenge of this game, whatever the game was. And there were adults who told us we shouldn't play these things, they're terrible, or they're devil worship, or they're going to corrupt people, or they let people do bad things, or whatever they said. And here we are, decades later, and this is the best hobby in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes people happy. It's a way of having friendships with other people. It's good, wholesome, clean fun. I suppose that the healthiness of the drinks and the snacks you have are a drawback, but basically people enjoy it. And we were playing it, it was young adults, it was teens, it was high school students, it was people in their 20s. And now we're playing with, we see parents, fathers playing with daughters, not sons, daughters. We see grandparents and grandchildren. We have children who press for wanting to play this game with the parent. Now, that's wholesome. And I don't mean to market this as a wholesome thing, because this is a fun project. This is a fun avocation. But how can anybody criticize this? And at the same time, this isn't for everyone. This is for a discerning player, someone who has some thoughts in their head, who mostly, it's self-selecting. Good people play this because they see the value in it. The others kind of fall off by the wayside. They don't see the value, and that's their loss. But I come back to this thing that I say again and again and again, this has got to be the best hobby in the world.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. Your analysis is great about it. And let me tell you that one of the great advantage for not show the age that traveler has is because the continues no frontier development. So if you have a traveler in your hand, even in 50 years, even in 100 years, probably, you can just generate stories, new word, and except for the border of the lore that you gave, you can go everywhere with your fantasy and with your thinking about it. So that this is the powerful of science fiction and sci-fi role play. But at the end, maybe telling sci-fi is something that is a little bit small to describe traveler, because at the end you said travel is a good thing right now because the father play with daughter and with son. So at the end is something that go over the ages, go over the decades, go over the everything, and stay there. It's there. Even if you said it's a fun project, it's something that I did because I feel it. Uh, Money is other story, but I think that what you did is a sort of gift that you gave us to our community, the community of a tabletop role play gamer all over the world. So I think
I
that
love those. I love and I appreciate those words. It is. I'm kind of the channel by which this gift is given, but I keep saying that it's the players themselves who make it work. I want to make another point here along the way, because when I wrote this in 1976 or so, as I was playing it, I discovered that one test session, several sessions, this young lady who was played a man character. She did not realize she could generate a woman character because she just thought, oh, army, got to be a man, spaceship captain, got to be a man. And so I had to put a rule in, which said you can be anybody you want. We have role-playing games today that are trying to say you can be anybody you want. You can be male or female. You can make your own choices. You can do all that. But Traveller pioneered that. Traveller said that literally 45 years ago. And everybody, what's interesting is nobody said, oh, that's so wrong. Women can't be spaceship pilots or army captains. I never got any feedback on that. People just accepted it. The generation that played this game then and has continued to play this game has always wholeheartedly accepted the idea that you can be anybody you want. And goes back to what people are making out of the game. In my church, it shows I go to a very fundamental Bible church. And I discovered they play Star Trek role-playing. The pastor's children and some of the other children play Star Trek role-playing game in the basement when they have a game night. It's no longer just frowned upon by the adults. They accept that these games are good, wholesome, wonderful things to play. Oh, but they don't play Dungeons and Dragons because that's devil worship, but that's okay.
I understand.
So, my next question is this one. Now the worldwide RPG movement is booming and bringing new game creators and distributors into the market as well. Is there any recent game that has impressed you in a good way recently?
One of the benefits that I have in being in the game business is that I can get about any game I want. Other publishers, I interact with them all the time. If they want, if a publisher wants something, they can get it from me. All they have to do is ask. Sometimes they send me things because they want to know my opinion, or they want me to promote it, and sometimes they do, or they just want me to see it.
Okay.
I went out and I bought Votes for Women because the game intrigued me. It's a board game about the American constitutional amendment giving votes to women, which was passed in 1920.
Mm-hmm.
So the game is 1840 to 1920 in probably 10-year turns. It's possible for that not to pass. It's possible that as you play it, things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great board game, but it's role playing because people are making decisions in that.
Oh.
I found that game fascinating.
Mm.
That's one. Another is Division Commander. It isn't out yet. It's coming from Dietz Foundation, I believe. And it's looking at the process of a general who runs a division and his colonels who run parts of the division,
Mm-hmm.
and how he has to make decisions to make that division fight effectively in combat. And it's not just having a bunch of counters that represent the various components and you push them around. He has to give orders. He's constrained by the intelligence he has. He's constrained by the supplies. It's really a deeper study of military command. And I find that game fascinating. It's not out yet, but it's in playtest, and I've been following that designer's thoughts on it quite well. Role-playing, I think Cthulhu is an amazing game.
Yeah.
Time and again, it's an amazing game. The idea that you're at the core, you are studying and exploring things that you cannot understand, and it's a race to understand something or solve something before you go crazy trying to understand it. Is a wonderful story. It's a wonderful mechanic, and it just makes that system work.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's one of the game that we submit to the attention of the young guys, because at the end, the investigation of something that you cannot understand is something that fascinated so much them. And I think that the point in connection between the Call of Cthulhu and some parts of Traveler are great. Maybe the approach is different, but at the end, the investigation of the unknown, it's something that moves so much the tabletop RPG movement. So this is a very good reply.
And I confess that I've stolen sanity from Cthulhu, and it's in some parts of Traveler, because I think that it, there is an element, there's an effort for us to address many of the social problems of society. And by that, I mean discrimination. I mean either racial or sexual discrimination, discrimination against various handicaps. And one of them, there is the opportunity with the sanity characteristic for characters to be handicapped with sanity challenges and still address them with properly taking your pills, properly addressing, because just because you have a low sanity doesn't mean you can't take a drug that will keep you sane. But of course, then if you get marooned and you run out of drugs, you have that other problem. So there are ways. Traveler gives us the opportunity to address modern day problems in the science fiction situation. And one last game that I'll mention is Paranoia.
No, what a title!
Yes, absolutely.
And the idea that it's from Mongoose. The current edition is from Mongoose, and it's fun. It's just fun. You keep dying and being reborn because they'll just activate a new clone of you.
Fantastic. Fully agree.
But I'm
I
giving you
love
my
it.
thoughts on what's fun other than Traveler. Of course, come back to Traveler. There are so many versions of Traveler to play and so much lore to explore.
Absolutely. There are so many chances to enjoy Traveler, even for every taste of player in terms of system and in terms of lore. So
Yep.
just I invite all the people to just.guest to learn more and to see the website of the that show the production of Marc and Far Future Enterprises, and then we go straight to the other question about the Far Future Enterprises. Is your creation, is your company, and what is the far future enterprises for you today, and what is the future project, if you could tell us something?
Far Future Enterprises is how I publish things. Most of what I publish are Traveler older editions because it's fun to play with the Traveler 5 version and it's fun to play with the Mongoose version, which are out there.
Yeah.
But there are 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different versions. There's a D20 version, there's a Hero version, there's a GURPS version. And I have them on CD-ROM.
Yeah.
If you ask, if you make a note, I can always send you a link for a download instead, or put it on a USB because a lot of people don't have CD-ROM anymore. But all those discs preserve the things that were put out 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. You can get them, and talk about a bargain. It's a $35 disc that just is filled with all the old PDFs of all the old books that were put out. Many people who did play Once Upon a Time didn't get them all. They didn't all come into the game store, and so they didn't get some of them. This is a way to pick them all up if you haven't had them, or to read them. It's just fun reading. So that's what we do, and you find them on the website, and that's let me get up here and walk over here. About 3 or 4 years ago, we did. I did my first Traveler novel. I had wanted to write a novel since 1977. Agent of the Imperium is what I finally wrote, and it said there are things I can talk about in fiction that I can't talk about in role playing. That there are
absolutely,
for sure,
and structures and such, and so this science fiction novel really tells us how the Imperium works. I learned more about how the Imperium works because I had to address certain questions. How does this work? How would how would the Navy work? What would they do? And so I genuinely encourage you to look at this.
Absolutely.
And
it will be mine.
Because that's what I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to.
Oh. Another little technical problem. Ragazzi, un attimino che ci ricomponiamo subito.
Se ne stava accorgendo, quindi sta
sì.
rientrando subito in live.
Non vi preoccupate che recuperiamo tutto e non molliamo niente. Eccoci qua.
Già tornando.
Eccoci qua.
And so that's the secret of the universe, and I don't want you to tell anybody else what I just said.
Yes, and we'll never say this again, ever. So
when we discuss about the secret of the universe, something stop us.
I'm working on a sequel to this novel.
Very good.
Absolutely nice.
You know, the Imperium hates psionics.
Yeah.
That's one of the rules of the game. And from a design standpoint, it has to hate the psionics, because if everybody had psionics, then we would have telepathy and teleportation, and we would have all kinds of things that don't happen and that are hard to understand and would change the structure. Why would you need buses if you have teleportation? Why would you need telephones if you have telepathy? How does that work? And so by making it not only illegal but hated, we keep that mostly out of the everyday activities we have. And the next story is going to be well, first of all, you find in this story
Mm-hmm.
that it isn't hated. It's just not respected. Nobody really believes it. You know, it just doesn't. Nobody. The people of the Imperium think it's quackery.
Mm-hmm.
And the next story is going to tell us how it really works and how it came that the Imperium actually hates it. Okay.
Qualche altra piccola
Qualche altro piccolo problema, ma noi ce
problematica?
la faremo lo stesso, Eric, ce la faremo lo
Sì, anche
stesso.
perché abbiamo un ospite che è estremamente rapido e tecnico nel risolvere.
Eccoci,
Okay.
here we
So
are.
that's, yeah, I'm back again. So that's this. I'm working on a novel.
Mhm.
I've also been talking with Matthew
Mhm.
at Mongoose,
Mhm.
who does the Mongoose edition of Traveler,
Mhm.
and they're gearing up to explore the events of the Fifth Frontier War, this major war that takes place
Mhm.
in the golden age of Traveler.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting because I have to give strong guidance on what happens in that war, and there truly are secrets behind the scenes of why the war was fought and who was involved, and those will gradually be revealed over the course of several years. So, once upon a time, way back when, in
Mhm.
about 1981, we published a game. Traveler GDW published a game,
Yeah.
Fifth Frontier War. And we did in preparation for that, we provided a little form
Sì.
in the magazine,
Yeah.
Travelers Journal of the Travelers Aid Society. It was a draft registration form. We wanted people to register for the draft.
Mm. Mhm.
And so they did. They would send in this little form, and we sent it out to people who subscribed
Mhm.
to the magazine.
This is very cool.
When we announced the board game Fifth Frontier War, we sent out a computer-generated draft notice to everybody who had signed up, and it had included a computer-generated character
Mhm.
and activated them to serve in one of the units in the board game. I've actually talked with Matthew Sprange, the chairman, the president, and the publisher at Mongoose, and encouraged him to do the same thing with Fifth Frontier War as we move into that ourselves. So be on the lookout for that, because if you see anything that asks you to sign up for that, do. It's worth it. You'll miss out if you don't.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a personal note, I'd like to say that I wish there were more novel related to RPGs, because I love reading the lore in the games, but I enjoy more fiction. So when there is a novel related to a game that I love, it's really interesting. It's a very nice way to talk about the universe you are gonna play. So I think it's a very, very cool idea.
And thank you. I think novels let us tell different parts of the lore than the role-playing adventures tell us. So yes.
And
Absolutely.
let me tell you one thing, because Mr. Bezos maybe is listening to us. If you started to write some novels, at the end maybe he makes knock knock to your door and say, "We would like to see a fiction of a traveler."
Yes. Yes.
That would be amazing. What I'd like to ask you is, what do you think of the current tabletop RPG market and all the related recent issues, such as OGL revision and such those things that are actual now?
Now you have to remember that I'm on two sides of this issue, because I'm on the player side and I'm on the publisher side.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
And,
interested about that.
I think that the OGL revolutionized the gaming industry because it made it possible for people to play those, to produce their own materials for those games.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, the reason that the license was put out there is to encourage support of the current edition of some game, whether it's Traveler, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or 4th edition. The whole purpose was to support and make it easier for people to get into games because it's roughly the same rules. I mean, we have an OGL version of Traveler D20, Traveler 20, which is, we have a CD-ROM with all of that on it, and it's based on the OGL. If the OGL goes away, I'm going to have to suppress that CD-ROM. So I don't look forward to that. At the same time, Traveler is bigger than just selling books to people.
Yes.
And I think that, I don't know where I'm coming down on this, because I think that Hasbro or Wizards is short-sighted in not understanding that Dungeons and Dragons, that the role-playing industry is more than just selling books to people. And
fully agree.
That few dollars or pennies that they miss out because somebody published something without sending them any money. I don't think Paizo is a threat to Hasbro. Paizo is not going to with their Pathfinder, is not going to ruin Dungeons and Dragons. And I think we have a greater responsibility to our fans, to the public, to the potential readers of our work, than just making sure we get every dollar out of what they have to spend. Now, I don't know the answer on OGL, but that's my basic thought.
You gave it the best reply that I heard, and I've read in I think 2 months of discussion about the OGL, because what I said is exactly the same you think, because when people sell games like you feel, as I appreciate, you feel the responsibility what you are selling to people, that is not just made for some dollars or some pennies, but it's something that give something to the people to believe, to practice, to use their imagination. It's something more ethic than they maybe can understand as $1 or $2 or so on. That's why I appreciate of your speech. So I think that is the best reply that person that a 50% gamer, 50% producer could give to this market. This is the best reply. My totally appreciation, Marc.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I totally agree, and I think that it sums what you said before about the fact that this is the most fun hobby that exists. I'm with you with this, and also about that we should not forget how all this started. So with peoples in their home, in their garages, and making small games that then became huge reality.
That's right. You know, I want to talk to you about something here. I have a product here that I produced. I have a
wonderful.
It's a deck of cards.
Oh,
I got 2 decks of cards, and they're not playing cards. They're strange cards. Here's, you know, a knighthood.
Okay.
Or a map of a world, or if I can find one here. what an armored
Fantastic.
flatbed carrier is, or what an Imperial commando knife looks like, or some clue to some strange world, or anyway, it is filled with interesting things. There's no purpose to it. It's not like it's you play with it. Here, I'm playing my world against your sword. It just, I call them prompts. They're fun to play with. They're fun to look at. They're another part of the lore that's interesting. And so I'm going to send you a box of them. I mean, enough for all of your listeners who want one. They're going to write to you and say, I want one of those. They're not all the same, so nobody's going to get the same thing.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's amazing. So, you're too kind.
And so I'm going to send those to you, and then they'll tell you that they want them, and then you'll get them out to your friends and your listeners and your fans and your readers. And oh, sure. This is supposed to be a prompt for every one of you to end up ordering all these games. Except it's not. This is about a fun hobby that we all enjoy, and if you, the listener out there, ask for one of these and get it, and play with it for a little while, and then put it aside and never do anything with Traveler again, that's fine because you just had a good time. And we're ending this discussion with the thought that this is the best hobby in the world.
Yeah.
Traveler is the best science fiction game, role-playing game in the world. And all of that, its purpose is for us to have good, clean fun. And I want to thank all of you for your support that I have had, because I have the best job in the world, and I thank you.
As we told, I could say one thing. I'm happy like the first time that I opened that I finished to read the Traveler book, the roleplay, the role-playing book. So I think that you give me a gift. The gift is you make me feel so child like 30 years ago. So thank you very much, because it's something that never happened so many times. So I feel myself very happy, because what you told us tonight, it's exactly what me and Eric want to bring in this show. We use this new technology just to bring to people these stories, the ethic, the creation process, the person behind so big, great games. And as usual, we found that the person, the creator behind the games is greater than a game, even if the game is great. So from the deep of my heart, thank you very much, Marc, because you show us something that is very important, and I promise that we will fix and we will share what you told you tonight for us and today for you as much as possible, because it's very important that people listen to what you said.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated talking to you both today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marc. So, Eric, would you like to say something?
Again, it was absolutely a pleasure and an honor to talk with you, Marc. And I loved how you described our hobby, how you remembered us how it should be, and again, me also for me it was like turning back time when I first played my first adventures in Traveler. So this is something you can't do every day.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I think that, first of all, thank you very much for our friend Causelmo that make a ride to the chat. So it means another channel stops their lives and come to ours to see what happened, bringing all the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Eric to be my we are partner in crime in this.
Yes, absolutely.
And the first and last things, thank you very much, Marc, for being here. We hope to see traveler stories, manuals, and everything to all the time for the future, everything. So I think that the only thing that we can say is thank you. Thank you.
And I thank you.
And we say it in Italian, grazie. So it's double sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope that future generation will and can enjoy Traveler as we could when we were kids.
And thank you very much again. I think that we can close this streaming, if even if I think that I could last for the rest of my life, but it's okay. I think that the Marc need to go. And thank you very much again, Marc. We appreciate to be here, and thank you. And we will go to see what Traveler give us for the future.
Excellent.
To the old people over there, thank you very much, and bye bye. Goodbye to all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.